I learned from the Arabs. That philosophy has done more to settle my nerves than 1,000 sedatives could have achieved. You and I are not Mohammedans. We don't want to be fatalists. But when the fierce, burning winds blow over our lives and we cannot prevent them, let us, too, accept the inevitable. And then get busy and pick up the pieces. 5 Methods I Use to Banish Worry by Professor William Leon Phelps. Opening square bracket. I had the privilege of spending an afternoon with Billy Phelps, of Yale, shortly before his death. Here are the 5 methods he used to banish worry based on the notes I took during that interview. Dale Carnegie. 1. When I was 24 years old, my eyes suddenly gave out. After reading 3 or 4 minutes, my eyes felt as if they were full of needles. And even when I was not reading, they were so sensitive that I could not face a window. I consulted the best occultists in New Haven and New York. Nothing seemed to help me. After 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I simply sat in a chair in the darkest corner of the room, waiting for bedtime. I was terrified. I feared that I would have to give up my career as a teacher and go out west and get a job as a lumberjack. Then a strange thing happened which shows the miraculous effects of the mind over physical ailments. When my eyes were at their worst that unhappy winter, I accepted an invitation to address a group of undergraduates. The hall was illuminated by huge rings of gas jets suspended from the ceiling. The lights pained my eyes so intensely that, while sitting on the platform, I was compelled to look at the floor. Yet during my 30-minute speech, I felt absolutely no pain, and I could look directly at these lights without any blinking whatever. Then when the assembly was over, my eyes pained me again. I thought then that if I could keep my mind strongly concentrated on something, not for 30 minutes, but for a week, I might be cured. For clearly it was a case of mental excitement triumphing over a bodily illness. I had a similar experience later while crossing the ocean. I had an attack of lumbago so severe that I could not walk. I suffered extreme pain when I tried to stand up straight. While in that condition, I was invited to give a lecture on shipboard. As soon as I began to speak, every trace of pain and stiffness left my body. I stood up straight, moved about with perfect flexibility, and spoke for an hour. When the lecture was over, I walked away to my stateroom with ease. For a moment, I thought I was cured. But the cure was only temporary. The lumbago resumed its attack. These experiences demonstrated to me the vital importance of one's mental attitude. They taught me the importance of enjoying life while you may. So I live every day now as if it were the first day I had ever seen and the last I were going to see. I am excited about the daily adventure of living, and nobody in a state of excitement will be unduly troubled with worries. I love my daily work as a teacher. I wrote a book entitled The Excitement of Teaching. Teaching has always been more than an art or an occupation to me. It is a passion. I love to teach as a painter loves to paint or a singer loves to sing. Before I get out of bed in the morning, I think with ardent delight of my first group of students. I have always felt that one of the chief reasons for success in life is enthusiasm. 2. I have found that I can crowd worry out of mind by reading an absorbing book. When I was 59, I had a prolonged nervous breakdown. During that period I began reading David Alec Wilson's monumental Life of Carlyle. It had a good deal to do with my convalescence because I became so absorbed in reading it that I forgot my despondency. 3. At another time when I was terribly depressed, I forced myself to become physically active almost every hour of the day. I played 5 or 6 sets of violent games of tennis every morning, then took a bath, had lunch, and played 18 holes of golf every afternoon. On Friday night I danced until 1 o'clock in the morning. I am a great believer in working up a tremendous sweat. I found that depression and worry oozed out of my system with the sweat. 4. I learned long ago to avoid the folly of hurry, rush, and working under tension. I have always tried to apply the philosophy of Wilbur Cross. When he was governor of Connecticut, he said to me, "Sometimes when I have too many things to do all at once, I sit down and relax and smoke my pipe for an hour and do nothing." 5. I have also learned that patience and time have a way of resolving our troubles. When I am worried about something, I try to see my troubles in their proper perspective. I say to myself, 2 months from now I shall not be worrying about this bad break, so why worry about it now? Why not assume now the same attitude that I will have 2 months from now? To sum up, here are the 5 ways in which Professor Phelps banished worry. 1. Live with gusto and enthusiasm. I live every day as if it were the first day I had ever seen and the last I were going to see. 2. Read an interesting book. When I had a prolonged nervous breakdown, I began reading The Life of Carlyle, and became so absorbed in reading it that I forgot my despondency. 3. Play games. When I was terribly depressed, I forced myself to become physically active almost every hour of the day. 4. Relax while you work. I long ago learned to avoid the folly of hurry, rush, and working under tension. 5. I try to see my troubles in their proper perspective. I say to myself, 2 months from now I shall not be worrying about this bad break, so why worry about it now? Why not assume now the same attitude that I will have 2 months from now? Single quote. I stood yesterday. I can stand today by Dorothy Dix. I have been through the depths of poverty and sickness. When people ask me what has kept me going through the troubles that come to all of us, I always reply, I stood yesterday. I can stand today. And I will not permit myself to think about what might happen tomorrow. I have known want and struggle and anxiety and despair. I have always had to work beyond the limit of my strength. As I look back upon my life, I see it as a battlefield strewn with the wrecks of dead dreams and broken hopes and shattered illusions, a battle in which I always fought with the odds tremendously against me, and which has left me scarred and bruised and maimed and old before my time. Yet I have no pity for myself, no tears to shed over the past and gone sorrows, no envy for the women who have been spared all I have gone through. For I have lived. They only existed. I have drank the cup of life down to its very dregs. They have only sipped the bubbles on top of it. I know things they will never know. I see things to which they are blind. It is only the women whose eyes have been washed clear with tears who get the broad vision that makes them little sisters to all the world. I have learned in the great University of Hard Knocks a philosophy that no woman who has had an easy life ever acquires. I have learned to live each day as it comes and not to borrow trouble by dreading the morrow. It is the dark menace of the future that makes cowards of us. I put that dread from me because experience has taught me that when the time comes that I so fear, the strength and wisdom to meet it will be given me. Little annoyances no longer have the power to affect me. After you have seen your whole edifice of happiness topple and crash in ruins about you, it never matters to you again that a servant forgets to put the doilies under the finger bowls, or the cook spills the soup. I have learned not to expect too much of people, and so I can still get happiness out of the friend who isn't quite true to me or the acquaintance who gossips. Above all, I have acquired a sense of humor, because there were so many things over which I had either to cry or laugh. And when a woman can joke over her troubles instead of having hysterics, nothing can ever hurt her much again. I do not regret the hardships I have known, because through them I have touched life at every point I have lived. And it was worth the price I had to pay. Dorothy Dix conquered worry by living in day-tight compartments. I did not expect to live to see the dawn. By J. C. Penney. Opening square bracket. On April 14, 1902. A young man with $500 in cash and $1 million in determination opened a dry goods store in Kemmerer, Wyoming, a little mining town of 1,000 people, situated on the old covered wagon trail laid out by the Lewis and Clark expedition. That young man and his wife lived in a half-story attic above the store, using a large empty dry goods box for a table and smaller boxes for chairs. The young wife wrapped her baby in a blanket and let it sleep under a counter while she stood beside it, helping her husband wait on customers. Today the largest chain of dry goods stores in the world bears that man's name. The J. C. Penney stores over 1,600 of them, covering every state in the Union. I recently had dinner with Mr. Penney, and he told me about the most dramatic moment of his life. Closing square bracket. Years ago, I passed through a most trying experience. I was worried and desperate. My worries were not connected in any way whatever with the J. C. Penney Company. That business was solid and thriving. But I personally had made some unwise commitments prior to the crash of 1929. Like many other men, I was blamed for conditions for which I was in no way responsible. I was so harassed with worries that I couldn't sleep, and developed an extremely painful ailment known as shingles, a red rash and skin eruptions. I consulted a physician, a man with whom I had gone to high school as a boy in Hamilton, Missouri. Drive. Elmer Eggleston, a staff physician at the Kellogg Sanatorium in Battle Creek, Michigan. Drive. Eggleston put me to bed and warned me that I was a very ill man. A rigid treatment was prescribed. But nothing helped. I got weaker day by day. I was broken nervously and physically, filled with despair, unable to see even a ray of hope. I had nothing to live for. I felt I hadn't a friend left in the world, that even my family had turned against me. One night, Drive Eggleston gave me a sedative, but the effect soon wore off and I awoke with an overwhelming conviction that this was my last night of life. Getting out of bed, I wrote farewell letters to my wife and to my son, saying that I did not expect to live to see the dawn. When I awoke the next morning, I was surprised to find that I was still alive. Going downstairs, I heard singing in a little chapel where devotional exercises were held each morning. I can still remember the hymn they were singing. God will take care of you. Going into the chapel, I listened with a weary heart to the singing, the reading of the scripture lesson, and the prayer. Suddenly something happened. I can't explain it. I can only call it a miracle. I felt as if I had been instantly lifted out of the darkness of a dungeon into warm, brilliant sunlight. I felt as if I had been transported from hell to paradise. I felt the power of God as I had never felt it before. I realized then that I alone was responsible for all my troubles. I knew that God with His love was there to help me. From that day to this, my life has been free from worry. I am 71 years old, and the most dramatic and glorious 20 minutes of my life were those I spent in that chapel that morning. God will take care of you. J.C. Penney learned to overcome worry almost instantaneously, because he discovered the one perfect cure. I go to the gym to punch the bag or take a hike outdoors by